You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns. Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on a journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Jen, a former lawyer, and now a yoga instructor and tarot card reader, wellness entrepreneur.
And I'm Mick, a marketer, Reiki master, and prepper.
So stop and think of a person that always throws off the energy of the place, right? Maybe it's a coworker, a friend, even a family member. You know, that person where it's like, you invited them. Yeah, the vibes are going to be off. Or have you ever walked into a place, a mall, a restaurant, and you just immediately felt like you had to get out of there? Today, we're talking about navigating around negative energy and how to move when the vibes are off.
But before we get into that, we want to remind you guys to make sure that you sign up for our mailing list. We send out periodic emails that have great information about how you can navigate the astrological season or what may be going on in a larger capacity in the world. We also offer a lot of great book tips, and we let you guys know about events that we have coming up, whether they are in person or virtual. So use the link in the show notes to go in and add your email address and get on our mailing list. All right, let's begin as we always do and have a little breathwork meditation to put us into a mindful place.
So for today's breathwork, visualization, our time together, I really thought about how we can be protective of our energetic self, our spiritual self, that part of ourselves. And, you know, they talk about different bodies that we have. So we have our physical body, you might say our light body, so to speak. But then there are parts of ourselves that are interacting with others at all times. You know, we talked about that a little bit with cord cutting.
Sure.
And so I wanted to do an exercise that I try to do every day, but I don't always get to. So we've done it on the podcast before, but it's a good practice anyway. So we'll, you know, do some visualization around our light bodies.
I love it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So go ahead and find a comfortable seat. You can always lie down. Flicker your eyes closed, maybe one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart, somewhere on your body, hands face down to ground you into your body, okay? Take a deep inhale in through your nose. Feel your belly rise. And exhale your breath back out through your mouth. Let's do another one together. Inhale through your nose. And then exhale that breath back out through your mouth. Let's do one more. Inhale through your nose. This time, seal your lips closed and exhale your breath back out through your nose. Gorgeous. Allow yourself to breathe normally and bring your awareness to your breath. Now that you're aware of your breath, I would like to invite you to envision a version of yourself in your mind's eye. Don't get hung up on what this version of yourself looks like. It's just an avatar, a representation of you in particular, your energetic self. As you envision yourself embodying this part of you, I want to invite you into surrounding this version of yourself in beautiful white light. What would it look like if someone just put a spotlight on you, on your skin, on what you're wearing? And imagine this white light as healing, as protective. Allow yourself to feel gratitude for this protection, for this covering over you. Because we don't want to be completely closed off from the world, can you imagine this light instead of a blanket and turn it into a net? For this type of exercise or work around protection, we don't want to fully close ourselves off from everyone and everything around us. We want to be able to interact, but we want to protect our energy. Fill yourself up with gratitude for this moment, for the ability to protect yourself. Take a deep inhale in through your nose. And open your mouth. Exhale your breath back out through your mouth. When you're ready, start wiggling your fingers and your toes. If you were lying down on your back, maybe roll to one side or another and hug your knees into your chest. Find your seat of choice if you're not already sitting. Flicker your eyes open last. Start to come back into the room. Welcome back.
Thanks for that, Jen. I like the net idea, right? Allows certain things to come in, but keeps other things out.
Yeah.
You can kind of make the netting as fine or as open as you want in your mind.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's talk negative energy. What is it? I mean, I think the simplest thing is, any person, place, or thing, noun. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make you feel good.
I heard now, not noun. Got it. Yes. Grammar. Got it. I'm here.
I thought she was going to be.
I had a big lunch. I'm a little sleepy. I'm here.
Okay. So maybe you're, in a person's presence or in a setting that, maybe makes you feel sad or heavy or even irritable. I certainly have been in those settings before.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about how I think it's both of our kids. I don't remember which one started it.
Yeah.
But when they want to say something is less than ideal, they call it yucky. So it's like, have I been in a setting that's yucky?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I notice it when I start to get in that kind of complaining mindset, or even if I start to feel drained physically, right? So those are some telltale signs, I think, when you're in that space.
And I know we kicked off this episode. I mean, it's in the title. We said this was the topic is about the word negative energy. And I think that was just to kind of level set. People you don't have to be spiritual to be like, you know what, this person has negative energy.
Yeah.
But we like a reframe.
Mm-hmm.
And it really comes from this concept of wholeness. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about a lot in the past few months, of things don't have to be good or bad or light or dark. And it's really about just like kind of taking it for what it is.
Yeah.
And so for today's episode, instead of dark or negative, I think we're going to use the word dense energy.
Yeah.
And we'll get a little bit more into why that is and what that kind of really means. But I think it keeps us from being angry or even afraid of that energy, of just being like, and I think anger and fear and negative energy, you can kind of get caught up in it too. So it's a little bit creating a separation.
Yeah,
so
I guess like keeps it at more of an arm's length. So,
yeah,
I think, even though we're calling it dense, I want to recognize that it is like out of alignment with like the vibration that we are trying to create, or that we are all like striving to create. We talked about it before, but there are different frequencies associated with different emotions and different types of energy. And so negative or dense energy is going to vibrate lower than the high frequencies that we see with peace and joy and gratitude and love, etc. That's important because I think we're all trying to manifest and attract the things that we want. And a lot of times those things are at a high vibration. And so we want to make sure we're not getting trapped in some of that lower, denser energy, because that creates distance from what we're trying to manifest.
It had me thinking dense, and I was like, this is when you don't want to be thick. That's that thick that you don't want, I was thinking of like when you're trying to do something, or you're trying to, let's say you're trying to get a new job, or you're trying to get some money, or calling the love of your life, and like we'll go with that one. You're dating, and it just feels like it's thick.
Yeah. Like you're walking in sludge or mud.
Yeah, sludgy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't get this business off the ground. And I'm going on these dates, and like they're bad. Like every single, it's just very terrible first dates. And like, why is this so hard? And like, think about the things that kind of all line up easily. Everything feels a little bit lighter and airier,
For sure.
So that's where we're going with the word dense, right? So how can you manifest joy or abundance or success when you're in a more dense state, right? We talked about this is a long time ago, it feels like, but about which frequency different emotions are. Yeah. So if you're worried or you're angry, how are you going to get out of that? Like, how are you going to get to the things that you got on that vision board?
Sure.
So navigating around dense energy is part of the work that we have to do for our manifestations as well, right? Like it's like part delusion of like, you have to believe it and kind of make yourself feel delusional about it. You have to act as if it's already happening. And so if I already know that I got a raise, why am I afraid that they're not going to give me a raise? Why am I afraid they're not going to see the value that I bring to this position, for instance? But like, I'm not afraid. Like, if you already had the raise, you wouldn't be afraid of not getting the raise. You understand what I'm saying? So you're in a higher state of consciousness.
So you're saying manifesting when using the like law of assumption, right? Essentially, where you're assuming that it already has occurred, and so you can't effectively utilize that law if you're stuck in a dense space.
Yeah, for sure. How do I even know when there's negative energy around me? I'm not psychic. We're all a little bit psychic. We all have that capability to tap in. It's a muscle that I think, we were talking about this in the last episode, of our ability to see what's around us, to pick up on energy, to be more connected to nature and how everything is. Like, I feel like there's levels of things that we're not seeing. We're not seeing our auras play with each other or repel each other because we're just not conditioned to use those parts of ourselves.
For sure.
So people saying, well, I'm not psychic, I'm not clairvoyant or whatever, it's a muscle. You're making that face at me. Is it about mediumship?
You clearly have something that's unresolved because I wasn't even making that face. There was no shade coming over here. I was just minding my business, thinking about what you were saying, processing it.
I guess, we'll share with the class.
Mm-hmm.
I have been a reluctant medium.
Mm-hmm.
Mick is my avid court reporter
Mm-hmm.
because he's always trying to put me out there. It's like, well, Jen's a medium. And I'm like, I'm not a medium. He was like, remember when you were at the Beyonce concert and you saw a ghost? Or that time you were at dinner and you saw a ghost?
We were at the little candlelight show and you were like, oh, some spirits over here that's talking to me.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Or the time when you were in the hotel and you like went to dinner. When you were staying in a hotel by yourself, you went to dinner and you were like, there was a woman looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You knew him.
That's just in like the last couple of years. I can go back further.
I'm reluctant because, like, what does tapping in mean?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of takes me on a whole different
Mm-hmm.
journey, but to the point of we're all a little bit psychic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to bring it back down to like the 3D,
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about negative energy, have you ever been around someone and you're like, oh my gosh, they suck all the air out of the room?
Yeah.
Like, when they walk in, and it's not even like I'm like, the first person that comes to mind is like Marilyn Monroe. Was like she could turn it on and people would just like look at her.
Yeah, that magnetism.
But it's not magnetism.
It's the opposite.
It's just like, fuck, this person's here.
What's that show? The vampire show that you watch?
What We Do in the Shadows?
Yes.
Yeah, What We Do in the Shadows, there's an energy vampire. And it's that's not quite the energy I'm on.
Yeah.
But he's that person at work who's like, oh man, did you see that Burlington Coat Factory's having a sale?
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get stuck talking to this person.
It's just draining.
He's just draining your energy. The type of person that I think of when I think of someone who sucks all the energy out of a room, we don't talk about him often in this podcast because we don't have to. Donald Trump. But it's not even about his politics per se. It's like my read of him as like a husband and a father, that people could be relaxing and maybe even mingling or having a good time, and that type of father figure walks in the room and everybody immediately tenses up because they're like, what is he gonna say? What is it, is it gonna be about him? What am I not doing good enough? He's gonna say something shitty. Like, there's this
example that I think Don Jr. was talking about where he was going to a Yankees game with his dad, and he was excited. He had a jersey on, and he was like, really excited to be at this game. And so his dad comes to pick him up, and he looks at him. He's like, "What are you doing? Go put a suit on," and like made him go change into a suit to go to this baseball game. And like that. That's what I'm kind of thinking of. Like,
popping the balloon.
That excitement just went away.
Damn, we was chilling. Yeah. Here you come.
Yeah.
On some bullshit.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Another example would be a coworker that like hates everything about the job. I've definitely kind of fallen in with those types of people, and then realizing when I get back to my desk, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, do I hate this job as much as I think I do? Or am I just kind of caught in this like tornado of shit? Tornado of turmoil about this. I'm like, look, this job is, I'm kind of chilling. I'm gonna leave at 4:30. I'm good.
Yeah.
It was like the gag was, looking back, the job wasn't that bad when I was getting caught up in that.
Yeah.
When I was like fully and truly burnt out, that's when it was bad. But like I was kind of caught into this spiral.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to being either coworkers with or even sometimes being friends with someone who's just like overly pessimistic. Right. And they're always finding something to complain about, always something to nitpick at. Like everyone else could be having the time of their lives and they're like, I don't know, it's hot outside, or like it's too hot. Like, even though maybe it's 85 degrees and they're like, it's so hot.
This
like
rosé is not dry enough.
Exactly. So like I've been in those situations. I've been in those friendships. And so it can just be draining. It can be draining. You don't enjoy being around those people all the time, right? I can even think of situations where I've been trapped in an Uber, where either there's someone who's just incredibly, like the driver is just like incredibly negative, or in the case we had most recently, there was just like an energy about this driver that we had like 2 weeks ago. And I don't know, something about it, it just felt so creepy. Like it just felt so like dark and dense, and I was just like, I can't get out of this car fast enough. He didn't say anything bad. Like I think he was perfectly polite in how he addressed us, but you could just feel something where it was just like something's not right here. And I'm staying very alert and making sure that all the right turns are being made, because I don't know where this dude might take us if I am not on guard.
So yeah, it was like there wasn't a lot of traffic, but he was just like changing lanes and just kind of moving kind of funny. And I was like, it's that part of yourself where you start to question, like, do I just have an overactive imagination? Have I watched too many episodes of Criminal Minds? Or am I just picking up on something kind of freaky?
Yeah.
I actually had another coworker story, and I feel like this one is also one that I feel like is universal. You ever have that person at work, and whenever you see their name in your inbox, or they calling your phone, they sending you a text, you feel your blood pressure rise? Oof. Like you don't even know what. You have no idea. Like they might just be like, oh, so-and-so has surgery. We're going to send them some flowers. I don't care. Why are you in my Outlook right now?
I got one in mind too.
Don't ask me for shit. Like I used to, what is she asking me for? I used to get so angry.
I remember you being that angry too.
And this is when I wasn't even in kind of like that circle of, this was pandemic. So it was really just me and Mick in the house. And I was
so mad.
I would be so mad. I'd be like, here she come wanting some bullshit. Like I would just get so angry. That's dense energy. But getting into like those feelings of just like, you feeling kind of funny about somebody, or like, I don't know how I feel about this, or whatever. Like where that feeling comes from. What is that, right? Yeah. Where you're just like, oh my God, or this or that. And I think if you've been listening to us for a while, or this is not your first episode, like, it can come from a myriad of things that we don't know about, right? We kind of chalk it up to this big umbrella of intuition, but also like maybe it's part fight or flight. So like our survival instinct to leave dangerous situations or situations that are less than ideal. So we've talked about this a million times. I've talked about this article before, but there is an article that Harvard did about fight or flight and how our body is always noticing things that we don't. So like how people will somehow stop themselves before being hit by a car. It's like our body is picking up on more things than we are actually like conscious of. And so there's an undercurrent, like we're talking about auras and energy, and it's just like the energy just might be thrown. And that lady did not like me. And so,
so that's like your body kind of in the present tense experiencing the energy that's being displayed. But what could also be happening under the surface there is like there's like pattern recognition, where like your body's recognizing patterns in the energy you're feeling now with something from your childhood, from your past, right? Like we did a whole episode talking about inner child work and some of the trauma that could be latent under the surface. And what you could be experiencing with that dense energy and like kind of that response to it could be something that is related to some of that childhood, work that you maybe need to do. People who are super empathetic maybe had to like constantly read the room when they were growing up, like, and having to navigate adults who maybe weren't always stable. And so that can lead you to be a lot more sensitive to kind of spaces and people that you're around as an adult.
Yeah. I feel like there was like this period where everybody's like, I'm an empath.
Yeah.
And then somebody was like, or were you in a abusive or neglected childhood home? And then it's like, oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
But, it's all information. It's all information. So I think the biggest tip that we would have about like avoiding or navigating around negative energy is really about embodiment and about being in your body. And we've talked a lot about people, but that also can include places. So paying attention to the signs that your body is giving you when you enter a space.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about like, at the beginning we were talking about like at a restaurant or a store.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I'm like, oh, the people in here must be racist.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they're not. Like maybe the vibes are just off. Like
Sure.
I'm like, why didn't you say hello to me? You said hello to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
It could be because this is America, but it also could just be like, I don't need to buy anything in here. There's nothing in here that serves me.
Yeah.
The intentions of the owners might not be aligned with me. So think of the signs of like you get that repulsion or like you're like, I gotta go. If you're feeling anxious, when I was working one job, I would walk into the building. Nobody said hi, nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is towards the end of that job. And my chest would just be so tight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was to the point where that became my new normal of like just having a tight chest or literally having heartburn. I used to have the most terrible heartburn in that job. Super healthy, never had any kids. Like I didn't have any kids yet. So like what was going on? I don't have heartburn like that anymore. I haven't in years. And I was just like as soon as I sit down, my chest is on fire. What's going on? Are you tired? Do you feel really drained? I used to kind of hang out with some people. And when I would leave, I felt like the sound effects of like a robot powering down, like, like I would just be like, ugh. And looking back, I'm like, there was something there. Like I didn't feel completely safe with those people. I didn't feel like I could be completely vulnerable, or I felt judged, or I felt like I had to put on like a different version of myself. And then when I was alone, I was like, oh my God, I can take this off. And like now I'm really cognizant as I'm making new friends. How do I feel when I walk away from that person? Sure. Do I feel like filled up? Do I feel happy? Am I laughing? Or am I feeling like that? Like really tired and drained kind of feeling.
No, I think as you were talking, it made me think about a time there's been a couple of times actually where I will go into stores that kind of specialize in like spiritual stuff, right? Like crystals and sage and incense and all that, right? And there was one store here in LA, I'm not gonna call them out, but I went to one. It was over in kind of like the Crenshaw area, and I walked in and no one spoke to me or anything. And I kind of was walking through and looking at stuff, and I started to get a little headache. And I was like, I'm gonna get out of here. Like my body just knew, like, whatever's going on in here, whatever's going on with these bundles of herbs or whatever they got in here, it's not for me. It's not an energetic alignment for me. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna listen to my body. And even though I needed some stuff at the time, I was like, I'm gonna find somewhere else to go. And it was very convenient because it was close to where our kids were doing an activity. So I was like, oh, this is very convenient. But I was like, nah, I'm about to bounce. And then we had another instance over here in our neighborhood in the Venice area where there was a similar vibe that was off going into.
I was like, okay. I also didn't like what time they were on. They were like, these are handmade baskets from Africa. Do you know how big Africa is, girl?
I hate that.
Give me a country, girl.
Yeah. You were talking to me about that, about museums and the politics of museums, and sometimes they'll just say Africa instead of saying like the country.
Yeah, Africa is big as hell and diverse as hell. Like, what are you talking about?
Vibes off in the museum.
She brought that shit from Hobby Lobby. Anyway.
So let's talk about some things you can do once you recognize that the vibes are off. I think a big one is kind of setting boundaries, right? So, maybe you have some friends, some family members, some coworkers, and they like to get into some heavy gossip and start being messy and, complaining or whatever, right? And so you can tell them like, hey, like, if I love talking, hanging out with y'all, but when we get in this kind of space, that's not really the energy I'm trying to be on. That's not the vibe I'm trying to project. So, I'm a dip out of that conversation once it goes there. But it's on you to kind of keep that boundary.
Yeah. I think that was like the biggest lesson for me in boundary setting is like, other people don't give a shit about your boundary. I mean, like they should, but it's not. I used to get so caught up on, I made a boundary and you're not abiding by that boundary. And because to me, the Olympic feat was me even setting the boundary in the first place. This is a little peek into how bad my boundary setting was before. And so I'm like, hey, it was actually really hard for me to tell you, I'm on vacation, don't call me, don't
Yeah.
text me, don't email, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
checking it. And then you call me anyway. And now I'm just like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, but instead of getting caught up in that, it's up to me
Mm-hmm.
to stick to the boundary. So when they're calling and emailing and texting while I'm on vacation, I'm not going to answer it because I set the boundary. You can do whatever you want to push the boundary, but the boundary is the
Mm-hmm.
boundary. It's an emergency.
Yeah.
It's this, it's that. Or, oh, come on. You know you want to talk shit about Doug.
Yeah.
We don't know nobody named Doug. Do we? No. So that's why I just threw him out there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, you know you don't like Doug. You're like, I can't believe this person is still trying to gossip with me. That's on them. It's
Yeah.
up to you to be like, I told you no, I'm leaving. I don't want to complain about the boss.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a part of that. I just want to do my work and I want to go
Mm-hmm.
home. And people gonna respond to it how they want to respond to it, but it's your boundary that you have to uphold. It also could be, and I think part of that is also in boundary setting, but just being mindful of how you're using your time, right? So if you're kind of getting caught up with the same lunch crew at work and all they do is complain, it's like start finding other reasons to be busy during lunch. Oh man, I can't. You know, I told my wife I was gonna pick up some stuff from her at the Hobby Lobby so we could sell it in the store that we got, you know. Or just like finding little ways out of it, of just like spacing out your
Mm-hmm.
time with that person. Because I think also, and I think that's something I found tricky, where it's like I really like this person, but this part is starting to really wear me down.
Yeah.
And trying to get some space from it so I don't
For sure.
blow up the whole relationship,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't like this one part of
Mm.
of like them being super pessimistic or woe
Sure.
is me, and just
Yeah.
like trying to keep my energy really positive.
Okay.
But let's also talk about, I think it's easy to talk about like work or maybe like extended family or even friends. But what if like your significant other is negative, or kind of in like a negative space?
Yeah.
How do you navigate around that?
I think if it were me and you, I would try to bring a third party in, because you don't want to come off as being like judgmental,
Mm.
and you don't want to come off as like, I don't know, like I think there's a lot of ego that sometimes can show up where it's like you come off as being like better than, you know what I mean? Like, hi, like, you know what I'm saying? So I think bringing in a third party, having some type of counselor or therapist
Yeah.
that can help kind of get to some of the root of that, I think would be helpful.
Yeah. It's interesting because either they've always been in this space and then maybe like you're evolving and you're changing,
Yeah.
right? Which I think couples that are together for a long period of time should constantly be having conversations about like, what version of you, like, am I meeting you where you are? Are we still like aligned
Sure.
in like our vision together as a couple?
Sure.
Are the same things still important to you that were important when we first got together, or has that changed? And are those things important to me or not? Like
Yeah.
having those types of conversations. But like if they're newly negative, you may wonder if maybe something else is going on. Like maybe they're depressed, or like they're upset about
Yeah.
like work or life, or like how can you support each other
For sure.
as a
For
couple?
sure. For sure.
And then I think the last thing I would say about like this topic of specifically around like situations and spaces is, if you're somewhat into human design or you listen to our human design episodes, and like you don't have to be like a student of human design, but it might be a clue if you start feeling negative emotions yourself that you're not in alignment with that place.
Sure.
So for me, like without going through all the different types, mine is anger. So when I'm pissed, it's time for me to get up out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yours is frustration.
Exactly.
So
Can feel similar in a lot of times.
yeah, just like
Yeah.
so yeah.
Okay. Well, let's say, you've been in a situation or around a person and you've been kind of absorbing some of that dense energy, and you feel yourself kind of going to a place that you don't necessarily want to be in. What are some things that, we can do to kind of get out of that space? And I think we are big proponents of meditation. And so we are always kind of championing that as a tool. So, if you can just really focus on a basic meditation, they talk about, I think in anger management classes, like counting, right? Like that's all about like bringing awareness to kind of where you are currently. So, simple mindfulness techniques where you're just focusing on your breath, deep breaths. You can count, you can utilize beads, count those, like if you're someone who's worked with like rosary beads or any type of the Buddhist beads, just kind of having something in your hands that you can kind of focus your mind on in a tactile way, I think is super helpful for kind of getting out of that space. And I even like to do visualization exercises like what we did today in the breath work, where you're kind of, visualizing that light around you and putting a net over you, or working with an angel to kind of help deliver you out of a place that may be more dense. And then grounding. I think grounding is super important. Working with nature. We did a whole episode talking about spending time in amongst trees and forest bathing, and how that can reduce your blood pressure and your anxiety. And so taking off your shoes when you're outside in the dirt, and allowing yourself to really be comforted by the earth and by nature can be super helpful.
Yeah. And I should have said this with that breath work, that when I try and do that daily, and I try and even visualize on behalf of the kids and do it. And I do it before we leave the house in the morning. So before we leave, what we've created is this like very safe space for ourselves. Shout out to the feng shui episode. Like we're trying to create kind of like this very, almost like a womb, like it's very, very safe territory before you go out into the world and you start to intermingle your energy with other people. To do an exercise like that is a good idea. Absolutely. And we didn't have to take all of that time. You can really just kind of try and put yourself in that place, put it on. It really takes like 30 seconds and then go. So yeah. But let's also talk about some spiritual tools, like tactile tools. So some that we love include black crystals like tourmaline and hematite, having in your purse, your pocket, your work bag, on your desk. People like to come to your desk and start yappa, yappa, yappa. Yeah. Just like kind of have that to protect yourself and your energy. We already talked about meditation, of course. And then like, let's get into sage. Because, we got some feedback on this video that we did about an orchid. And they were saying like, oh, you shouldn't have used sage and da-da-da. Like we tried to sage this plant that we had. And I want to be clear. How was I gonna say it?
So before you get too deep into it, I actually think we should do a whole episode on smudging and sage. So I think we can kind of table that whole conversation for that, because I do have some newer insights from that gathering that I went to. So I think it could be a whole topic. So sorry to cut you off there, but I think again we can do a whole episode there.
Okay. Well, we'll put a pause for now on like the politics of sage, I guess is what I would call, or like the controversy around sage. But like really it's about finding the cleansing tool that works best for you. So you can use Florida water, you can use incense. Some people burn rosemary or lavender. There's energy sprays that you can buy. And it's really about the intention. So making sure you're not just like half paying attention and like just spraying it. Like what is your intention? And I feel like that's a really good intention when like I try and have something on me at all times. So if I pop out of something, or if I was doing readings, or if I like leave a situation, I'm like, woo, everything feel a little yucky. Yeah. Let me, I'll sage real quick in my car, or if I have like a little spray, I'll use that. If someone's in your home, because we have family members that we invite over, and it's like, so and so's uncle by marriage is getting on your nerves. You just kind of, spraying your space, because our home is so sacred to us, but like making sure you're intentional about it.
Yeah. I think to kind of just end things and wrap it up, probably the most important thing that I found when it comes to just trying to combat or keep myself away from some of that dense energy is really about my own self-care. Right. And so what I've paid attention to in recent years and really tried to work against is kind of that negative self-talk. I think a lot of times me and a lot of high achieving people will be our biggest critic.
Yeah.
and we will create a lot of dense energy in our own brains. And so the more you can, speak affirmations and speak life into yourself and speak higher vibrations into yourself, the more you'll be able to remove yourself from a lot of that dense energy.
Mm.
And so, it's not really rocket science, but treat yourself with love and surround yourself with folks who also pour into you as well.
Yeah, for sure. And if you need more things to do, because we need more things to do, gratitude journaling, you said affirmations, mirror work, like talking to yourself in the mirror, speaking love over yourself. Like the list goes on and on and on and on and on. The ways that you can single-handedly bring more positivity into your life.
Yeah.
All right.
So, friendly reminder, guys, before we go, to sign up for our mailing list. Again, we send out a lot of great information there, and we'll let you know about events, both virtual and in person.
And finally, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you listen or watch.
Namaste.